You wake up, it's a Tuesday. The alarm on your phone went off like usual, the coffee is brewing. Nothing feels different. You look out the window, the sun is rising, the sky is blue. The world is exactly as you left it last night, and yet, deep in the Earth's core, something profound has happened. The great churning engine of liquid iron, the dynamo that generates our planet's magnetic shield, has finally wobbled to a halt and started spinning the other way. The magnetic field has flipped. North is now south. South is now north. You wouldn't feel a thing. There's no shudder, no sound, no immediate sign that one of the fundamental forces protecting life on Earth has just undergone a radical transformation. But your world is about to fall apart, and it will happen quickly. The first hint would be subtle. You get in your car to go to work. The GPS can't find a signal. You figure it's just a glitch, a temporary outage. You switch to the radio, but all you get is static, a strange hissing sound across every station. On your way, you see a flock of pigeons, hundreds of them, flying in confused circles and crashing into buildings. It's odd, unsettling, but you brush it off. By the time you get to the office, things are clearly wrong. The internet is down, not just in your building, but everywhere. Cell service is gone. No calls, no texts. Landlines still work, for now. People are gathered in confused knots, talking, speculating. A solar flare, maybe? A major cyber attack? No one knows. The news isn't on TV because the satellite feeds are dead. This is how it begins. Not with a bang, but with a silent, cascading failure of the systems we rely on for everything. The magnetic field, the one we never think about, is the invisible shield that protects our delicate technology from the harsh reality of space. And that shield is now gone. To understand why this is happening, we need to talk about what the magnetic field actually is. Think of the Earth as having a giant bar magnet inside it with a north and a south pole. This isn't a real magnet, of course. It's generated by the movement of molten iron in the outer core, thousands of miles beneath our feet. This movement creates massive electrical currents, which in turn produce the magnetic field. This field extends far out into space, forming a protective bubble called the magnetosphere. This shield does one main job. It deflects the solar wind. The sun is constantly blasting out a stream of charged particles. This stream is powerful. Without the magnetosphere, this solar wind would strip away our atmosphere over time, just like it did to Mars. It also protects us and our technology from cosmic rays and the most violent solar outbursts called coronal mass ejections. But this field isn't stable. The geologic record written in layers of rock tells us a clear story. The Earth's magnetic field has flipped hundreds of times over millions of years. It's a natural process. The problem isn't the flip itself, the problem is the transition. It's not like flipping a switch. The process is messy and takes time. Scientists believe it could take anywhere from a few hundred to several thousand years. During this period, the main magnetic field weakens dramatically, perhaps to as little as 10% of its current strength. It becomes chaotic. Multiple north and south poles might pop up all over the globe. Your compass, if it worked at all, might point to Kansas one day and Antarctica the next. Our hypothetical scenario is that this transition happens overnight. The field doesn't just weaken, it collapses. It goes to near zero before reestablishing itself in the opposite direction, and in that window of vulnerability, all hell breaks loose. The first victims are the satellites. We have thousands of them orbiting the Earth. They handle our communications, our navigation systems, weather forecasting, financial transactions, and military intelligence. They are built to withstand the radiation of space, but they are designed to do so under the protection of a full-strength magnetic field. Without that shield, they are naked. A single, average-sized solar flare, something that happens all the time and usually just gives us nice auroras, would now be catastrophic. The flood of charged particles would overwhelm the satellite's electronics, frying their circuits. They would go dark, one by one. Within hours, our global communication network would cease to exist. This is why your phone and internet stopped working. No GPS, no satellite TV, no long-distance calls. International banking, which relies on satellites to sync transactions, would freeze. The global economy would instantly seize up, but that's just the beginning. The real disaster is happening down on the ground. The same solar particles that are killing our satellites are now slamming into the upper atmosphere. This creates powerful electrical currents, not just in space, but on the surface of the Earth. These currents seek the path of least resistance, and what have we built all over the world? A perfect path, thousands of miles of long conductive power lines. These are called geomagnetically induced currents, or GICs. Even a strong solar storm today can cause problems. In 1989, a storm knocked out the power grid for the entire province of Quebec. But that was with a healthy magnetic field. In our scenario, with the shield gone, a normal gust of solar wind would be like a 1,000-year storm. The currents surging through the power grids would be immense. They would overload and melt the giant transformers at power substations. And these are not simple things to fix. A large transformer can weigh hundreds of tons, take months or even years to build, and requires a specialized team to install. We don't have thousands of them sitting in a warehouse somewhere, so the power goes out. Not for a few hours, not for a few days. We are talking about a blackout that could last for years. Think about what that means. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or air conditioning. No running water because the pumps that move it are electric, no sewage treatment, no gasoline because the pumps at the station are electric. Our entire modern civilization is a fragile house of cards built on the assumption of a steady supply of electricity. And that assumption is now gone. Hospitals would be among the first to face a crisis. Their backup generators only have enough fuel for a few days. After that, life support machines go silent. And modern medicine would be thrown back to the 19th century. Surgeries would happen by candlelight. Food would be the next crisis. Supermarkets have about 3 days worth of food. Without refrigeration, all the meat, dairy, and produce would rot. The complex supply chains that bring food from farms to cities would collapse. There are no trucks, no trains, no ships. People in cities would be trapped with no power, no water, and dwindling food. And what about all the other forms of navigation? The collapse of GPS was just the first sign. Every airplane in the sky would be flying blind. Their navigation systems rely on GPS, but also on magnetic compasses as a backup. Now, those compasses are spinning uselessly. Without a way to navigate and without communication with air traffic control, landings would become almost impossible. Many planes would simply run out of fuel. Ships at sea would be in a similar situation. They would be lost on a vast ocean with no way to know their position. The entire system of global trade, which relies on massive container ships moving goods between continents, would stop. But the technological collapse is only one part of the story. There is a deeper, more personal threat. The magnetic field doesn't just protect our technology, it protects us. The same cosmic rays and solar particles that fry satellites are also harmful to living things. Our atmosphere provides a lot of protection, but the magnetic field is the first line of defense. With it gone, the amount of radiation reaching the Earth's surface would increase significantly. It wouldn't be like standing next to a nuclear reactor. You wouldn't get radiation sickness just by walking outside. But the long-term effects would be devastating. Rates of cancer would skyrocket. Cataracts and other radiation-related illnesses would become common. The danger would be invisible, silent, and cumulative. Every minute you spent outside would add to your lifetime dose. Sunburn would happen in minutes, not hours. The increased radiation would also damage DNA, leading to a rise in birth defects. Life itself would become more precarious. We might have to change the way we live. People might spend more time indoors or underground. New construction might need to incorporate radiation shielding like layers of lead or thick concrete. The day of just walking outside for a stroll in the park would be over, and it's not just us. Every living thing on Earth is adapted to the current level of radiation. The flip would be a shock to the entire global ecosystem. Animals that use the magnetic field to navigate would be lost. We saw it with the pigeons on the first day. But it would be worse for long-distance migrators. Sea turtles, salmon, whales, and migratory birds navigate using an internal magnetic sense. They would be completely disoriented. Entire species could be driven to extinction because they can no longer find their breeding grounds or food sources. Whales would beach themselves, sea turtles would swim out into the empty ocean instead of toward their nesting beaches. The natural world would be thrown into a state of profound confusion. Plants would also suffer. Increased ultraviolet radiation from the sun would damage their cells, stunting their growth and reducing crop yields. This would happen at the exact same time our industrial agricultural system, with its reliance on electric irrigation pumps and GPS-guided tractors, has collapsed. The global food crisis would become a famine. Even the sky would look different. The auroras, the northern and southern lights, are caused by solar particles interacting with the atmosphere along the magnetic field lines near the poles. With the field gone or chaotic, these particles would rain down all over the planet. You might see shimmering green and red auroras from the equator. It would be a beautiful, terrifying sight. A constant reminder of our planet's lost shield. Over the very long term, the consequences could be even more dire. The solar wind, no longer deflected, would begin to strip away our atmosphere particle by particle. It would slowly blow our air and water out into space. This is a process that takes millions of years, but it's what scientists believe happened to Mars. It once had a thick atmosphere and liquid water, but after its internal dynamo shut down and its magnetic field died, the solar wind scoured it down to the cold, thin atmosphere it has today. The flip tomorrow wouldn't turn Earth into Mars overnight, but it would start us down that path. So what would we do? How would society reorganize itself in the face of such a complete collapse? The first few weeks and months would be chaos, riots, starvation, and the breakdown of social order in cities. People would try to flee to the countryside seeking food and water, but rural areas would be overwhelmed. Small communities might survive, but only if they are self-sufficient and can protect themselves. Governments without communication, power, or transportation would be largely powerless. They would cease to exist as effective national entities. Power would become local. Humanity would survive. We are a resilient and adaptable species, but the world would be unrecognizable. The global population of 8 billion people is sustained by a complex technological system. Without that system, the planet simply could not support that many people. There would be a massive die-off. The survivors would be forced to live in a new, harder world. Knowledge would become the most valuable resource. Not how to code an app, but how to purify water, grow food without fertilizer, mend tools, and read the stars for navigation. Old technologies would make a comeback. Steam power, sailboats. We would look to the past to figure out how to live in the future. We would have to re-engineer our world to be more resilient. Any new power grids would have to be built with massive safeguards against geomagnetic storms. We might have to abandon the idea of a global grid and focus on smaller, isolated, local power generation. We might even decide that a high-tech society is too fragile, too vulnerable to the whims of the planet and the sun. Eventually, the flip would be over. The Earth's dynamo would settle down, and a new, stable magnetic field would emerge. It would be just as strong as the old one, but the polarity would be reversed. A compass, if you could build one, would now point to the geographic South Pole. For the people living in this new world, this would be normal. They would be born into a world with a stronger sun, a more dangerous sky, and tales of a lost golden age they could barely imagine. They would look at the rusted skeletons of airplanes and the silent, dead cities of their ancestors and wonder how such a magical, fragile world was ever possible. The story of the magnetic field flip is a story of humility. It's a reminder that we live on a dynamic, sometimes violent planet, and that our civilization exists only because of a set of very specific and fortunate conditions. We are protected by an invisible shield that we did nothing to create and have no control over. We have built a world that is utterly dependent on it, yet we barely give it a thought. A flip isn't a question of if, but when. The geologic record guarantees it will happen again. The process has already started. The Earth's magnetic field has been weakening for the past 200 years. The South Atlantic Anomaly, a weak spot in the field over South America and the Southern Atlantic Ocean, is growing. Scientists are watching it closely. They see it as a possible sign that the core is becoming more chaotic, a potential precursor to a flip. But they all thought we had time, hundreds or thousands of years. Time to prepare, to harden our grids, to build more robust satellites. Time to understand the threat and engineer solutions. The scenario of it happening tomorrow is a worst-case scenario. It's an abrupt, violent shock to the system, but it forces us to confront our vulnerability. It forces us to see how interconnected and how fragile our modern world really is. Everything we have built, from the global economy to the device you're reading this on, depends on a faint magnetic whisper from the center of the Earth. In the aftermath, after the chaos and the struggle, humanity might find a new way forward. A simpler, more local, more resilient way of life. We would have learned a hard lesson about the difference between what is convenient and what is essential. We would understand that the most important technologies are not the ones that connect us to a global network, but the ones that provide clean water, grow food, and keep us warm. The sky would still be beautiful, maybe even more so with the constant shimmering of the auroras. And people would look up at it not with the casual indifference of today, but with a deep and abiding respect. A respect for the power of the planet and the star we orbit. They would know they are small, and that their survival depends not on mastering the world, but on understanding their place within it. The flip would be an ending, the end of our world as we know it, but it would also be a beginning. A forced reset, a chance to build something new from the ruins of the old, a world where north is south, and humanity, for the first time in a long time, knows its true place in the universe.